Hello and namaste, everyone. Today I'll be talking about limitations in psychological inquiry. So, psychological inquiry, why do we use it for? To understand more about human behavior and thought processes or mental processes. But measuring these things, which are not physical but mental in nature, cannot be easy. It's not the same as you measure physical objects, right? So that's why psychological research or inquiry has its own limitations. So some of these are absence of a true 0 point, which is very different from physical measurements. Now, physical measurements, example, measuring the length or the height of a person can start with a true zero. But in psychology, there's no such thing as true zero. Like, there's no person who has zero intelligence, zero motivation, zero aptitude, right? So, even a person with very low intelligence will still have some amount of intelligence. Psychologists, that's why they fix an artificial 0 point, which makes psychological scores relative rather than absolute. Relative is compared to others, maybe comparing the score of an individual to the average score of a group. Sometimes we also use ranks instead of raw scores or exact scores. So ranks don't show equal differences. That's a drawback of ranks. Like if you are ranking students based on a test which was given for 100 marks, the first rank student might have scored 95, the second rank student might have scored 94, and the third rank student might have scored 80 marks. So the difference between the first and second rank is 1 mark, and the difference between the second and the third rank is 14 marks. It's not the same. But ranks usually we assume that they are equally spaced. So this shows that psychological measurements are comparative, they are not exact. Another limitation is relative nature of psychological scores. So psychological scores are basically used for specific cultural and social settings. You can't use the same test everywhere. They are not universal. Why? You'll know now, because if you use the same test everywhere as a universal test, it will not give you the right results. Like an intelligence test designed for urban children, you can have questions based on metro trains, elevators, shopping malls, multi-storied buildings, and so on. But you can't use the same test for tribal or rural area children because they are unfamiliar with all this. And you cannot conclude that they are not intelligent enough or smart enough because they don't know about all this, but it's just that they lack exposure. So another example could be a personality test developed in USA may include situations common in Western culture, but in India, if you don't modify it, it'll give you incorrect results. That's why psychological tests or tools must be adapted to that particular culture or society and standardized according to that culture. Another limitation is subjective interpretation of qualitative data. Qualitative data, as we have already discussed, has methods like tools, case studies, observations, diaries, and narratives. So they rely heavily on interpretation by the psychologist or the researcher. And this interpretation can vary from individual to individual. Like, for example, if in a class, a child is very quiet, you assume that it could be because the child is shy or the child is not interested in the subject that is being taught, or the child may be feeling anxious. So this only shows that my interpretation is different from the interpretation of another researcher, hence it is subjective, and it may be influenced by my own background, my own beliefs, my own experiences. So how do we reduce this bias? By using more than one investigator, involve more than one person in the investigation, and towards the end of the day, we discuss our findings together every day And another good thing to do is involving the participants or the subjects in explaining or describing their experiences. This will make your interpretations more accurate and reliable. So finally, we can conclude that psychological research or inquiry is very useful but has its own limitations because of all the reasons that we have discussed. So we have to use multiple methods, careful planning, and ethical principles also have to be kept in mind to get a clearer and balanced understanding of human behavior, mental processes, and experiences. This is not very important for the exam, but it's important for you to know and understand so that it will help you to understand psychology as a subject, and especially if you want to pursue research. So thank you once again. I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.